Hey guys, Adam and Ash talking to you again today, and today we are helping you put together your NPC posing routine. Now remember, this is the NPC posing routine, not the IFBB Pro posing routine. For all of you out there, this is a video we've been getting a lot of requests for. And before we go into that though, Ashley, this suit is bling-tastic.
Yes,
I love it.
It's from Angel Competition Bikinis. Use code AshleyKFit at checkout for a discount. But I love it.
I love Angels. I've been working with them for, gosh, almost a decade now. So always having positive success with their suits. So nice job with you guys over there, Angels. So with that being said, let's jump into it.
In this video, we are going to show you how to do it. So in order to create an NPC posing routine for the bikini division, you must first learn the front pose, the back pose, and how to do transitions. And luckily for you, we have already done videos covering these exact topics. So make sure to check out these videos in case you need more information on how to do these. The NPC posing routine can be anywhere from 20 to 30-ish seconds. Some shows will give you more time, some won't. So make sure that you really limit the time on your posing routine. Do not feel the need to add in extra unnecessary movements just for the sake of it. It will not help you. In fact, the more time you're on stage and the more poses that you're doing just because, the more the judges are able to see your flaws. So it's better to have a shorter, more precise posing routine with poses that you're comfortable with poses that you know look good on you, rather than adding all this extra fluff and all these extra little dance movements. You don't need to do that. So the NPC posing routine is much quicker and more basic than the IFBB posing routine. You might see your favorite IFBB Bikini Pro do these very long and elaborate posing routines, but you do not need to do that. In fact, in the NPC, there is no walking to the front or the back in your routine. It's basically just front pose, transition to back pose, transition to front pose, and exit off. So ideally, about 3 or 4 poses within your routine in comparison to an IFBB Pro bikini posing routine that can take well over a minute. Do not feel pressured to recreate a posing style that just isn't you. For example, I know for myself, I am not, I guess, a sexy poser that doesn't really fit me or my personality. I'm much more, I guess, bubbly. That kind of fits me more than like the sexy style. So just like with myself, if the posing style doesn't fit you, do not feel pressured to emulate that. Even if your favorite bikini pro has a super elaborate routine that has a style that you love, maybe it's just not you. So it's important to find your own unique style that fits not only your physique, but also your personality. Keep in mind, in bikini posing, the movement should be flowy, it should look effortless. You should never look like you're tensing or flexing, okay? So just think of your arms as being weightless and just think of yourself as gliding on the stage. So you need to avoid those rigid, tense, or forced movements, right? Again, it should never look like you're flexing, it should look effortless, and it should look very weightless. Make sure you're comfortable walking in heels. It's important to be comfortable while walking in heels. Even though you might have experience walking in heels during your job or going out on the weekends, keep in mind the heels that we use for competition are different. They're much higher. They're usually about a 5-inch heel. So make sure you're comfortable with that. Make sure you're comfortable walking around in heels, because if you can't walk in heels, you certainly won't be able to pose in heels. Which brings me to my next point. Make sure that when you are practicing, you're practicing on several different textures of floor. Because keep in mind, on show day, it could be a carpeted floor, it could be a wooden floor, it could be a rubbery floor. You just don't know. So make sure you're comfortable walking in all surfaces. Make sure that you display confidence on stage, eyes to the judges, and keep that smile on at all times. The moment you step on stage to the moment you leave stage, you should be smiling and making eye contact. You make sure that you display that positive energy through your posing and that you're confident And even if you are nervous, that is okay. It's okay to be nervous. It just means you care. So make sure you turn that nervous energy into confidence. A tip for you is before you start to add the sass and personality to your routine, you need to get comfortable and familiar with the basics first. You can always add the sass and extra little movements later on once you've become comfortable with your routine. But in the beginning stages, when you're first learning the routine, you got to get the basics down. Make sure it's smooth, make sure it's effortless, make sure you don't have to think about what's next. And once you have achieved that, then you can add in some sass and more personality. When you practice, be mindful of the speed of your routine. I would suggest practicing extra slow because when you get on stage, when you get in front of the judges, you're going to be nervous. So most of the time when people are nervous, they go faster than usual. So make sure you're practicing at a slower pace. Also, when you practice, make sure eventually you eliminate mirrors. Mirrors are kind of like training wheels, right? So it's great to practice and it definitely gets your feet wet. But when you're on the real stage, there are no mirrors. So that can definitely hinder your routine if you're used to only practicing in front of mirrors or practicing in front of your phone. And then when that's taken away on show day, it can kind of disrupt your routine. So make sure once you do get comfortable enough, you start to practice without mirrors. Now you can definitely bring in mirrors here and there, but I would suggest not all posing sessions are with mirrors. So you got to do it without the mirrors eventually.
Now that you guys have the basic tips down, we're going to go through step by step and show you how to put together your own individual routine. So, step one, we're going to walk to the box. Now, as she walks to the box, it's important to know that she's not just going to walk and set up her pose. She's going to kind of ease into it and give a little finesse when she's doing that setup. And on your setup, Ashley, you want to show how you do that again?
I do either, you can go here to here, or you can walk in doing a little sway of your arms.
There you go. As you notice, she's not walking in and just walking right into her pose, which you'll see some people do haven't practiced much. They'll just they don't know what to do and they just kind of hear. So she's doing her moves into it, and everyone has their own unique style. You see some people come all the way in and they'll put their hand down on their hip. They'll have people that, like that. They'll do what Ashley does here. She kind of eases into it. So whatever your style is, and this is why it becomes very individual, and it's so fun to see everyone's unique style. And Ashley's style, she's kind of more of the athletic, bubbly kind of poser. And you have some people that are more that kind of sultry posers, and you got to find what works for you that looks natural on you. So in step two, she goes right into that front pose. Now, we've gone a lot into the front pose lately in different videos, and if you want to see those videos, make sure to check them out. But in this front pose, some of the things that we're looking for is a good shoulder base, so some good width up top. We are looking for a small waistline, but we're not looking for necessarily the most profile waistline. So we don't necessarily need the smallest waistline where you're just facing that way. That used to be something we'd look for, but not anymore as much, because now we're really going for that overall width on the shoulders. A good rule of thumb on that front pose is to have your back heel close to your front toe on your actual feet, and you're creating some width with your feet to your shoulders and creating good lines. So you have wide shoulders, smaller waist, and feet that are pretty close to the width of your shoulders here. Now, in step three, we're going to go transition to the back pose. Now, as you see, she collects. This is a common thing where you're pushing your glutes to the judges. Remember, she's in the previous video, we are not showing the whole glute, we're just showing this side glute and kind of pushing it, creating a little bit of tension in the arms, and then she transitions to the back. Now, as she's transitioning to the back, you notice how clean her step was, how clean her footwork was there. You want to do that again one more time, Ashley? So watch how clean her feet are in this transition. You're not seeing a bunch of shifting. She hits her foot position and she's there. She's not taking a bunch of little steps where you see people take when they're getting into position, because all those little steps are going to make some shake happen in the glutes. And you want to look confident, you want to look poised, you want to look like, hey, I belong here, and that's how you do it. You step right into position, back's already arched, already in that pose right when you get there. Make sure that you're not getting there and then you're setting up. And now we're going to transition back to the front is the next step. One of the things that's really important to be aware of that I always see people mess up on here is when you transition back to the front, make sure your core is tight when you're about to face the front. Don't get to here and then tighten your core, because you'll see a lot of people do that because they're just thinking about getting to the front. So make sure your core is tight. As soon as the judges can see even part of your waistline, make sure your core is tight. Don't get to here and then tighten it up. Remember, the judges get a very short opportunity to see you because they're looking at everyone. And if they don't see you at your best, it's your fault, not theirs. Okay guys, now you're at the end of your routine and it's time for the sign off. So the sign off is essentially saying thank you to everyone, showing respect to the judges for giving their time today, and just saying thanks and goodbye. So there's 100 different ways of doing this. One of the most common ones is the hand going up and saying goodbye like that. You'll notice it's always the back hand, not the front hand, saying goodbye, because you're gonna have white armpits from sweating and being backstage all day long, so you always wanna hide that and give your back hand there. A couple other ones you'll see is just shimmering the shoulders and doing a little foot kick. There's so many different ways of doing this here. Yep, so you'll see a bunch of different ones, and find your style again. Remember, if you're the cutesy athletic girl like Ashley, this one works really great. If you're the sultry girl who's really giving a slower, more sultry posing routine, you might want to do something different. Just find your unique style, and I think that's the important thing about bikini posing. And I think the coolest thing about bikini posing is there's no set bikini pose. It's really open. In bodybuilding, you don't get much of that. It's just front double biceps. You get very strict things. With bikini, it's like, show us a front pose, show us your back pose, whatever's best for you. That's kind of the rules. So these are good guidelines, but you got to find your own unique style. Okay, so one of the biggest fears that comes to me before a show is women are always saying, what side am I going to walk from? Am I going to walk from the left? Am I going to walk from the right? And it's like a fear because you're just getting started in it. But just know, unless you are the very first person in the very first class, you're going to see everyone come out to the stage before you do it, and you just kind of follow what they're doing. But it is important to practice on both sides. It's important to practice leaving on both sides too, just in case, and to overcome that fear. So in most scenarios, especially if you're going to a national level, it's pretty much all scenarios, you're going to walk from backstage to the curtain, from behind the curtain to the box, and then you're going to walk continuously off the stage. So she's going to walk in. Now remember, when you're walking in, you're being judged right from the moment the judges can see you. So shoulders are up, stomach is tight, you're smiling, you're looking at the judges. This is not the time to make eye contact with your friends and your boyfriend and say hi to them. Your eyes are on the judges, smiling at them alone, and that's the only people who you want to focus on when you're there. So as she does her full posing routine, as we've gone over the times and whatnot, as she does her full posing routine, at a national show, you pretty much would just walk all the way off, you'd go back behind the stage, and then you'd come out again. At a local show, you might walk out, come from behind, and then go to the A line. And so in that scenario, you would walk just like how she just did. You'd walk, you'd come to the box, you'd do your whole routine, and then from there, you'd walk to maybe this A line over here, where there'd be a bunch of different people, and then you just walk in, sit into your pose. And then I would just sit behind Ashley in my pose if I just did my routine, and then the next person would come out and do the same thing and go behind her, and that's how you'd line up. And that does happen from time to time. Now, what most commonly happens at a local show, and it does depend on the promoter and what area you're in, because it's different for different areas, is you come out in a group and you're all already on these A lines. So me and Ashley would be on this A line here before we did the individual posing routine, and then one at a time, you would go usually from the front to the box, and then Ashley would go to her box, and as she goes to her box, she does her individual routine, and then she comes back and comes to the back of the line. And then she ends up lining up behind me, and then the line scoots up, you just keep going until you get back to her being in the very front of the line, or whoever was in the front, back to the front of the line. It kind of works that way. And then if there's more competitors, the other line will do the same thing, and then it's time for your individual call out. So that's another option of doing it. Now there is one more option that they do in different states, depending on how big the shows are in their states, and this happens usually only if there's a bigger contest. And in that scenario, basically we come out on one line together, and so Ashley's next to me. There's 6 to 8 people on this line, bikini people, and you're all on the same line. And what we do is one at a time, you go up a few steps, you do your individual routine. We're still back here in our bikini pose, looking at the judges while they do their individual routine. and then you just walk back. And then she just walks back into line, and then I step forward and I do my individual routine. They do this to save time at shows where there's like 400 competitors, and it takes so long to walk each person one at a time there. It really eats up on the time in terms of the night show, going through the individual routines twice and whatnot. So just be prepared for any of those scenarios. And again, don't get nervous about it. You're gonna see everyone do it before you. They're gonna walk you through it. There's gonna be expediters there, so it's nothing to really worry about. But it is something you should be prepared for because there's gonna be different at every venue. And that's a wrap, guys. That's how you put together your NPC posing routine. What do you guys want us to cover next? Leave it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.